Hi everyone, Jennifer here. Today we're going to talk about winter and what it means from an emotional perspective. And the reason why we're talking about this is because we are in winter in terms of the Chinese calendar. November 7th was the first day of winter. It's a seasonal node. On top of that, tomorrow happens to be Friday the 13th. And this year, Friday the 13th might have a new meaning. I don't know. There's so much superstition about Friday the 13th, and I want to talk about the superstition, the fear. So we're going to be doing a big mishmash of Chinese medicine, of ascension, of quantum, energetics, and that's what I'm about. Putting it all together, synthesizing it. And so winter is the element of water. And the element of water is associated with the emotion of fear. Right? So we hear Friday the 13th and we're like, oh my gosh, fear. So first we're going to address Friday the 13th. There is nothing to be feared about for Friday the 13th. There's nothing to be feared about for the number 13. And the reason is because 13 is actually the divine feminine. It's a number for the Sophianic code. 1313 is actually representative, symbolic of the divine feminine. So when you see a Friday the 13th, it's actually time to allow that divine feminine to flow through. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, we all have a divine feminine. We all have a divine feminine, we all have a divine masculine. And 13 is a call for us to allow that feminine to flow through. I have a feeling, and I haven't looked up into the history of it, that 13 being a bad number has to do with witch hunting and all this trying to clear out of the spirituals in the past. Those of us that were seeking an answer, the seekers, the spiritualists, oftentimes were persecuted in history. And so 13 ended up with a bad rep. But in this today, here, now, 13 is the most important number. We have to embrace that 13. We have to embrace that divine feminine. Because in the new age, in our new world, in the world that we are creating right now, 13, the divine feminine, is going to be the driving force of this new world. The ability to flow, the ability to move with the seasons, to move with the changes, to the ability to acknowledge and accept and embrace change. Because change is the only constant in this world. And we've come from a very masculine history in this last few hundred years or so, where change wasn't very accepted or tolerated. Right? We want everything to be constant. We want growth to be constant. We want our numbers to look constant. We didn't want to acknowledge change and transformation, and that being the driving factor in the evolution of humanity. And it's time to turn that narrative around. And turning that narrative around does not mean that we beat up the masculine, because now we're just swinging the pendulum to the other side, right? We have to embrace both sides, because you're half this and half that. Feminine and masculine should be 50-50, right? And for a really long time, our world was like masculine, feminine, right? So feminine had a voice, but it was very quiet and was suppressed, right? And nothing against the feminist movement. This has nothing to do with the feminist movement either. This is about divine masculine, divine feminine, sitting on equal terms in their own characteristic. The divine masculine is all about structure. The divine feminine is about flow, is about letting go, is about surrender. Letting go is probably not the right word. Surrender is the better word. Because surrender, you're allowing the circumstances to happen. You're observing, acknowledging, but you're not being pulled into it. And so 13 is actually a really important number for us to acknowledge, to bring in the divine masculine, the divine feminine, so that it's on par with the divine masculine. So we don't have to squish down the divine masculine. We actually allow the divine feminine to rise to meet where the divine masculine is. And the two can be in harmony, right? Everything's about harmony. And actually, I was thinking the other day, everybody's so obsessed with 1111, you know, all the repeating numbers, 555, 444, 333. I was actually thinking about changing my clock to the 24-hour cycle, so that when it's 1:13, it'll show 1313, and that'll be the Sophionic code. But today's video is actually really talking about winter. I totally went off on a tangent, but that's what it's all about, going off on these tangents that are relative to the current energies. Today's video is about winter and fear, because winter, again, is the element of water. Water is associated with fear. And winter is actually the perfect time to take those fear out, examine them. Well, why have we been fearful all this time? Because all of that fear has been protecting us from something. It has served its purpose, but we don't have to fear the same thing over and over and over again. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that the divine feminine is about the ability to change, the ability to recognize the cycles of our life, right? As women, we go through monthly cycle, right? So that's the epiphany of the divine feminine. Everything has a cyclical nature. So the fear that we're bringing up, that we're examining right now, had its purpose in the cycle and in the seasons of our life. We have to acknowledge it. Have gratitude that it existed and that it protected us from whatever it protected us from. And when we accept and acknowledge, or actually when we acknowledge and accept those fears, then we allow ourselves, we give ourselves the permission to rewrite the narrative. We don't have to fear the same things again. Another aspect of winter is it has to do with the action of storage. I think about the basements, the squirrels that have been putting their nuts away, or their acorns, putting their acorns away, and storing it away for the cold winter. So fear, going back to the video that I did 2 days ago, I think, about timelines. Fear is the same thing. It's written down somewhere in our contract, in our internal contract with ourselves. And so winter being the storage season, we're allowed to go into our storehouses, the oldest, the most ancient ones within us. And the word ancient came up because those storehouses may not just be of this lifetime. It may go across many lifetimes. It may go across many timelines, many dimensions. A lot of fears come from there's a rhyme and reason to why we had these fears and what it was protecting us from. So during winter, we have access to our storehouse, right? Because that's what we need to be eating from. So in winter, we have to go all the way back to the back of our storehouse, pull out those old dusty, whatever has been sitting there, dust off the cobwebs. Take a look at it. Who put it there? Why? Thank it for being there. And if it doesn't have to be there anymore, rewrite it. Remember, you hold the pen, you hold the power, and you're able to rewrite it. This is the season of rewriting, so that we it's not about getting rid of the fear, it's about learning from the fear and transcending above that fear, so that that fear no longer has power over us anymore. And so I invite you this winter to really take an account of all these fears, right? And on the Chinese calendar, it's based on the angle of the sun and the earth, right? So winter starts a little bit earlier. It's usually around November 5th to 7th. I think this year was November 7th. It ends, spring starts somewhere February 2nd or 3rd. So it's not on the spring equinox that we know of. So that is the season of winter and the element of water. And it's our time. It's a very sacred time for us to go into that storehouse of our own wisdom, pull out all the things that have been accumulating back there. And fear is the deepest set emotion possible, right? Because the emotions that we feel, They're really quick, they're acute. But fear is old emotions that have been processed and stored. So in winter, like I said, we're able to go into that storehouse. We can pull all the new stuff, put it aside for a second, go all the way to the back, pull out that old stuff. Look at it, acknowledge it, accept it, thank it, have gratitude that it was there. It served its purpose. Now it's time to move on to the next. Transcend and transform, right? Because change is the only constant in our lives. Change is the only constant in this universe. In order for everything to occur, in order to all phenomena, in order to be alive, change must be in constant motion. Actually, that is one of the basic tenets of the yin and yang, right? That the two have to be in constant motion. I'm getting ready to teach a class on Sunday for the doctorate program, and I'm talking about yin and yang, and all of a sudden that clicked with me that everything is about this constant motion, right? Everything that we know is but a snapshot, right? Because yin and yang always have to be moving through time and space, right? We see yin and yang as this flat two-dimensional picture with a squiggly line, but it isn't. It's actually a three-dimensional representation. In the old days, they did not have three-dimensional rendering. They did the best they can with a 2D picture. And that squiggly line means that it's constantly in motion. It's constantly moving. It's constantly moving through time and space, right? It's always this ebb and flow through time and space, right? So the two are constantly having this exchange through time and space. And what we remember as events, what we see as things, events, people, interactions, every phenomenon in our life is but a snapshot of these two yin and yang flowing through time and space, right? So what we see and what we remember, those memories are literally just snapshots, right? Think of an MRI image. It takes a lot of snapshots throughout our body, right? So our body is this three-dimensional object, and the MRI is taking these two-dimensional images, right? So same thing, yin and yang, constant flow, constant interchange, constant transformation, constant inner transformation. And we're taking snapshots. Those are our memory, right? But at any given moment, because of the quantum nature of yin and yang, you're able to rewrite. And this is your opportunity. This is your time to pull out that old stuff, rewrite it, and realize that that fear never, it served its purpose, but it doesn't have a place in our lives now. So I wish you a very happy Friday the 13th. Please honor your divine feminine and go with the flow. Whatever challenges that come, acknowledge and accept and flow with it, because that's what life is about. We'll see you soon.